Afternoon, it's Adil Fazal here, market analyst for CFDAs.com, a leading spread betting and CFD brokerage. If you'd like to know more about the services and free products, just visit CFDS.com. Okay, folks. Hello and good afternoon to all. Those of you that want to certainly encourage you as well, highly recommended to visit CFDs.com. And certainly open up an account with them and trade with them. Okay, folks, so the FTSE 100, let's start in terms of fundamentals today. Okay, so the Asian markets, Shanghai, well, I should say the Nikkei overnight was actually up almost by 1%. The Shanghai was really the market that was really under immense pressure. Okay, down almost 6%, although the Hang Seng certainly held in pretty well. Okay. Now, I did expect the FTSE 100 to obviously feel the pressure from that index being down. That obviously wasn't the case. We actually short squeezed higher and pushed to new highs, or certainly rallied on the FTSE from the 6725. Okay, so the FTSE 100 itself, let's just see the main risers in the FTSE were Hikma. We also had ARM and TUI. Okay, so they were the main risers, 2.5%, 2.7%, 2.9%. And the fallers, obviously Royal Mail, you can see there, Glencore, Fresnillo, BP, Rio Tinto. So predominantly looks like commodities to me, even though with the Fed's FOMC decision with regards to interest rates, etc., we still seem to be holding in. Okay. Right, let's look at the alternative news flow in terms of, we all know, is Greece. Greece certainly remains the obviously dominant theme. And that certainly seems to be dictating sentiment. Okay, and now with regards to economic data itself, we had some data out of the UK, really public sector net borrowing, slight improvement in the fiscal health of the UK. So if anything, net positive. The main stimulant has been the stronger wage growth that's coming out of the UK. And that certainly seems to be driving the FTSE 100 itself. Now, initially we had the pop, as you can see here. We sort of sidetracked, and then obviously we popped higher. So I'll certainly try and discuss the actual movement itself with regards to the FTSE 100. Now, the FTSE itself at the close, or the day itself, started off around the 6,700 region, started to push higher from the 6,700. And we actually pushed as high as 6727 before obviously coming back below to 6710, and then we had this immense pop higher. Now a lot of individuals are attributing that pop to the options X activity, very unexplainable, although having said that, it did also pop on alternative indices as well. Now we can certainly attribute that to options X, possibly. Okay, possibly. Now itself, so if we look at the actual move, go from the early morning, so 8 o'clock, so as you can see there, the German DAX certainly popped higher before it obviously started to sell off quite substantially. So it could also be attributed to a rumour. Okay, so it may well be a rumour that came out with regards to the Europe, with regards to Greece and a potential resolution, etc. So that certainly could be another alternative theory with regards to that pop. Again, very strange. Okay, very strange in terms of the move higher. I was expecting a potential break lower down to the 200 MA and the pivot low of the morning as well, which was registered at 6690, before we obviously got a move higher, given the fact that we had this potential for an inverted head and shoulders formation from here. So that was your horizontal resistance that was supposed to hold. As you can see here, that's your resistance there. Okay, so that's a resistance level I expected the markets to hold. Obviously we've screamed past that as well. Now with regards to the oil price, we didn't have any major movements in oil, so that wasn't really explainable in terms of oil price. So if I bring up the chart of oil, or even bring up the chart of Brent, you can see from here nothing major. Yes, slight little pop in Brent, potentially in line with that. But obviously, as you can see, the market's obviously sold off thereafter. So we are into support now on oil. So this should certainly bode well for the FTSE 100 as well. Okay. With regards to sterling, let's just bring up a chart of sterling as well. See if we can observe the inverse relationship there with regards to sterling and the FTSE itself. I can't find the chart of sterling. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's sterling. Okay, so certainly putting in a potential I mean, put a doji candle for today, for now, and 10 minutes certainly seems to be putting in a lower high. 60-minute obviously putting in a lower high, so certainly is remaining bullish. Now, after the Shanghai was down almost 6.5%, I did obviously change my bias on the actual FTSE, and I actually exited my trade. I'm glad I did, because obviously it's at 6,700 now. Now, having said that, the FTSE itself has weathered the storm. I did expect the FTSE to be down much lower, but that obviously hasn't been the case. So therefore, given the fact that you have the Chinese minus 6.5% factored in, given the fact that you now have this potential HNS formation on the on sterling, so potential top, given the fact that we didn't actually move higher post the actual economic data today on public sector net borrowing. So from my perspective, it certainly seems that everything's baked into the cake now, especially with regards to sterling, and we should certainly get a potential thrust lower on sterling, and that obviously should help the actual FTSE 100 itself to stabilize and start to move higher as well. Okay, so that really is in a nutshell in terms of the fundamentals. Everything is regarding Greece. Now, the latest news at present, as I read, we've had Mr. Fed Williams come out very dovish. US productivity growth is weak in first quarter. Evidence is US and slow productivity. Greek default may not have a huge fallout, so trying to downplay that. Okay, so safer course is starting early and proceeding gradually. Outlook on Slovenia. So basically, at present, there's also an article with regards to a potential debt relief as well, with regards to the actual with regards to actual Greece. Okay, so the latest tweet that I was reading was the markets has a this is according to the Financial Times. The market has a degree of confidence that Greece will find a way to continue to service its debt, or short-dated bond, should I say, even if it means kicking the can down the road, which more than likely is to be the case. Okay, so that's certainly my summation. So we certainly have some news flow with regards to potential debt relief back to the 2012 Accord, and that itself has obviously held the markets higher, especially given the fact that the FTSE 100 didn't fall substantially, even with the Shanghai down quite considerably. Okay, so now let's have a look at the FTSE 100 chart, and let's see if we can understand where we are in this current situation. So we look at the weekly chart. The weekly chart put in a potential bottoming tail. So the weekly chart itself has put in a potential bottoming tail here, the pivot low being the 6630 region. Okay, now the daily chart itself, again, has a falling contracting wedge pattern, so therefore a potential bullish scenario. We did attempt, the bulls certainly came in strong today, pushing the markets as high as 6760, so certainly signs of the bulls coming back in, and we actually broke out above this obviously falling contracting channel. So certainly good early signs, given the fact that we've put in two potential topping, or should we say bottoming tails. So the two bottoming tails that we see here are the one registered on the 16th, and the second one is registered on the 18th. So two bottoming tails and looking for a potential breakout. Go to a 60-minute chart now of the FTSE 100. Let's have a look. Okay, so 60-minute chart, we still remain in this bearish channel. Okay, we still remain in this bearish channel, but having said that, we certainly seem to have made a base. Okay, so the base on the FTSE 100 is around the 6650 region. Okay, so we are looking at a potential base here, and for the market certainly to move higher as well, especially given the fact that we certainly seem to be making this inverted head and shoulder. So left shoulder is here, so allow me to draw this correctly. So your right shoulder, or should I say the head, obviously has been put in. We've pushed back here, we're looking for this right shoulder on FTSE 100, and then looking for a potential break. That's my understanding of things. Now the reason why I'm supporting this thesis or this theory is because the biotechs have made a new high. Okay, and the Nasdaq has obviously started to reverse higher as well, quite impressively. So that in itself should send the DAX higher, which in turn sends the actual European markets higher. So that's the thesis. Excuse me, yawning a lot today because I'm fasting. Okay, so looking to break out of this channel, so number one, okay, and looking for a potential target of 6870 region on the upside. I was put off given the fact that the Shanghai was down by almost 6 or 7%, but that was due to other alternative reasons which I won't explain now. But given the fact, the main thing is the FTSE itself has digested that, and certainly still put in stellar performance from my understanding, regardless of whether it was Hikmah, etc., that led the FTSE higher. It certainly has been very impressive, especially with oil prices and copper now into support. The FTSE itself does look like a bullish scenario from my perspective, okay, and that's exactly what I'm expecting as well. So I'm looking at least 6850, 6870 on the upside with regards to the FTSE and this inverted head and shoulders playing out. Now if I were to utilize the actual potential projected pattern, so let's just take the pivot low, take it to the pivot high. Okay, so pivot low to the pivot high, and let's just project this higher. Okay, so we have the neckline, which is going to be around the 6740 region, if I'm correct. Yes, you have the pivot low being the 6630 region. Okay, so let's try and project this. 6740 minus the pivot low, which we can have is around the 6620 region. That's 6740 region. So you are looking at 6860, which again coincides with that 200 MA. Okay, so that's the setup on the FTSE 100 based on the 60-minute chart. Okay, so let me just type this in correctly. Okay, IHS equals, there we go. Okay, so looking at 6860, okay, on the FTSE 100 itself. Now going to a 10-minute chart, see if we can go into micro time frame and look to project higher here. Okay, so the 10-minute chart at present on the FTSE 100 certainly is into potential support here around the 6700. If that obviously fails to hold, then we are looking at potential support around the 6680 and then potential 200 MA as well. But the most important thing that I can see now is the market has failed to stop, or certainly stop making lower lows and lower highs, and is now, given the fact that we put in a higher high today at 6760, we are looking at a potential higher high and higher low to resume. Okay, that's basically my thesis. Even though you do have a potential argument for a mini H&S here, again that could go as pivot at 6760 down to 6710, even if it's a 50-point move. You're looking at 6680, potentially 6660. Well, given the fact that obviously the Nasdaq has started to make a should I say semicons, if I just show you the chart of the semiconductors, that would be very impressive. As you can see there, the semiconductors have made a new high. That's certainly a bullish sign, and also given the fact that Miss Yellen was certainly dovish in her remarks, in her obviously that in itself should put a pivot low in the Kiwi and the Aussie, and if that's the case, then obviously the FTSE 100 is certainly potentially moving higher. Now if I just bring up the chart of the Kiwi and the Aussie, because they are very important here. Also the chart of copper as well. As you can see here, copper now is into solid support around the 2.56 level. So again, that's certainly another argument for the price of copper to go higher, which in turn should help the miners, and that should obviously send the actual FTSE 100 higher as well. So not only do you have copper into support, you've got oil into support, as you can see here on crude on the 1 hour chart. Even if I zoom in here and go to a 4 hour chart, and you should again see the support level. So that support level will be quite important with regards to holding the FTSE, and the support level holding on the FTSE 100, and potentially making it a new high. Okay, so the Greece uncertainty is telling you, really from my perspective, the market is telling you that Greece certainly will look to potentially secure a deal. That's my understanding of things. But again, the market is king. Okay, folks, so that's a wrap with regards to FTSE 100. The FTSE 250, again, the weekly chart is always a concern to me, but given the fact that sterling is obviously into resistance, it's a good sign, and that's a good sign for the FTSE 250. Okay. Not only that, you have two pivot, obviously bottoming tails on the FTSE 250, given the fact that sterling is into resistance, and you are looking for a pop. Not only that, the other alternative or other argument is that the FTSE All share has held the 200 MA pretty well. We've consolidated today with the doji candle and now looking for a potential thrust higher with some catalyst. If the Greece situation gets resolved, or even if it's kicked the can down the road, then obviously that's a bullish sign, and the market should certainly move higher based on that. Okay, and that's a wrap. With regards to the volatility index as well, just before I wrap up this video, just need to clarify. The FTSE volatility index is obviously into resistance since I glanced. So let's just have a look here, bring up the chart again. Here we go. So again, FTSE volatility index into resistance, and therefore that means the FTSE 100 is into potential support given the inverse relationship. Same as sterling, and also it has a positive relationship with copper and oil. Okay, folks, risk on, risk off, wax on, wax off. Be sure to visit cfds.com for your brokering needs. Goodbye.